Have you ever heard of a place so haunted, so cursed that people vanish without a trace? A place where reality twists and the walls seem to breathe? Tonight, we unravel the chilling mystery of the Whitford Hotel, a place where a man walked in, but never walked out. Jacob Myers was a journalist, a man of logic and reason. But what happened to him inside room 313 defies all explanation. A mirror that didn't just reflect but watched. A door that simply ceased to exist. And whispers that called from the other side. Stay with me as we explore the strange case of the man who disappeared in a haunted hotel. And if you love haunting mysteries and unexplained stories, make sure to like this video and subscribe. Now, let's get started. It was the kind of foggy night that swallowed the road ahead like an endless void. The headlights of the old car barely pierced the thick mist as it crawled through the winding path leading to the infamous Whitford Hotel. Though the structure was grand and imposing, with ivy creeping up its stone walls and a tower that scraped the sky, there was something undeniably unsettling about the place. The locals whispered about its haunted past, tales of rooms that changed shape, ghostly voices in the corridors, and shadows that never quite belonged to anyone. Jacob Myers had heard those stories. He didn't believe them. He was a journalist, driven by logic and reason, on assignment to write about the history of the Whitford Hotel. Rumor had it that the place was on the verge of being demolished, but before that happened, Jacob's editor wanted him to get the scoop, both the history and the mysterious disappearances that had plagued the hotel for decades. Upon arriving, he was greeted by the manager, a gaunt man with deep-set eyes who welcomed him without much enthusiasm. The dim glow from the chandelier above cast long, creepy shadows across his sharp features, making him look almost skeletal. "Welcome to Whitford," the manager said, his voice like the creaking of an old door. His thin lips curled into something that resembled a smile but never quite reached his hollow eyes. "I'm sure you'll find the stories interesting." Jacob hesitated for only a second before reaching for the room key. It was ice cold in his hand, colder than it should have been. The number 313 was etched onto the brass tag, slightly worn as if handled more than the others. As he turned to leave, the manager added in a whisper, "If you hear knocking in the night, best not to answer." Little did Jacob know he was about to become one of the stories himself. Jacob climbed the grand staircase, each step groaning under his weight. The air inside was thick, dust-laden, carrying an old scent, like a place long abandoned yet still watching. The chandeliers above flickered as if disturbed by an unseen breeze. The walls were adorned with faded portraits, their subjects staring out with hollow expressions. For a fleeting moment, Jacob swore the eyes followed him, though he dismissed it as a trick of the dim lighting. A strange draft whispered through the corridor, rustling his collar despite the absence of open windows. He passed closed doors, each marked with tarnished brass numbers. Some looked as though they hadn't been opened in years. Others had deep scratches near the doorknobs, as if someone had desperately tried to claw their way out. As he neared room 313, the hallway seemed to stretch unnaturally, growing longer with each step. The air became heavier, pressing against his chest. A shiver ran down his spine as he reached the door, which was slightly ajar, as if expecting him. Inside, the room was colder than the hallway. The air carried a strange stillness, and the curtains fluttered as if someone had just left. The furniture was meticulously arranged, yet an odd sense of disorder lingered, as though something had been disturbed. The wallpaper was peeling at the edges, revealing dark, intricate patterns underneath, patterns that seemed to shift when he wasn't looking. A faint rhythmic tapping echoed from the walls, like distant footsteps pacing just out of sight. Ignoring the unease settling in his chest, he pulled out his recorder. Room 313, he murmured. Supposedly haunted. Let's see what's really here. The wind outside howled suddenly, rattling the window pane. The lights flickered again, and for a brief moment his own shadow seemed to move, just a second too late. Jacob exhaled, shaking his head. Just old wiring, he muttered. But deep down, he wasn't so sure. That's when he noticed the mirror. It stood against the far wall, its elaborate frame adorned with intricate carvings, twisting vines, hollow-eyed faces, and symbols he didn't recognize. The glass itself, however, was off. It wasn't cracked or dusty, but something about its reflection felt wrong. Jacob stepped closer. His own image seemed sluggish, as if moving just a fraction behind him. He waved his hand experimentally. The reflection followed, but not instantly. A second too late, a second too slow. A chill prickled his spine. Then, just over his left shoulder, movement. A shadow. A man in a dark suit stood next to him in the reflection. Jacob's breath caught in his throat. His pulse hammered. Slowly, stiffly, he turned around. Nothing. The room was empty. His eyes flicked back to the mirror, his breath coming faster now. The figure was still there. A tall man with an obscured face, his features smudged like a painting left in the rain. But there was one thing Jacob could see clearly: the man's eyes. Hollow. The reflection shifted. Jacob's own image looked different now. It was still him, but his posture was unnatural, shoulders tense, head tilted slightly, like a puppet waiting for its strings to be pulled. And then, the worst part, the door behind him in the reflection was gone. Number that wasn't possible. Jacob whirled around. The door was still there in reality, standing half open. He exhaled shakily, pressing a hand to his forehead. He was exhausted. That had to be it. His mind was playing tricks on him. But when he turned back, the door in the mirror was gone again. His gut twisted. Slowly, as if drawn by some invisible force, he reached out. His fingertips barely grazed the surface. The lights flickered. A blast of freezing air surged through the room, and then a hand, icy, unseen, wrapping around his chest like skeletal fingers, clawing through his ribcage. Jacob choked out a gasp. The air left his lungs in a sharp exhale as an unbearable weight pressed down on him. His legs refused to move. His vision swam. The figure in the mirror took a step closer, closer. The distorted grin stretched wider, splitting its face in a grotesque mockery of a smile. Jacob tried to scream, but nothing came. By the way, if you were in Jacob's place, would you stay the night in room 313? Or would you turn around and leave immediately? Let me know in the comments. Now coming back to our story. Jacob's breath clouded in the freezing air. His limbs felt heavy, like he was sinking into something unseen, something pulling him away from the world he knew. The mirror trembled. No. The glass rippled like water disturbed by an invisible force. The figure inside remained perfectly still, except for its smile, widening into something far too large for a human face. Jacob tried to turn away, to run, to do anything, but his body was locked in place. He could feel it now, something creeping along his spine, tendrils of cold slipping beneath his skin, burrowing deep. Then the whisper came. Not in his ears, inside his mind. You were never meant to leave. The lights flickered violently, plunging the room into a strobe of darkness and dim illumination. The air around Jacob grew thicker, suffocating, pressing in from all sides. His heartbeat roared in his ears, deafening, chaotic. And then, with a final flicker, darkness, silence. The next morning, when the sun barely crept through the mist, the hotel staff found room 313 empty. The bed was neatly made. Jacob's belongings sat undisturbed. No signs of struggle, no indications of where he had gone. Only his notebook lay on the floor, as if it had slipped from his grasp at the very last moment. Its final entry, hastily scribbled in uneven handwriting: "I can hear footsteps. Something's wrong. It's as if the hotel doesn't want me to leave." The mirror stood where it always had, untouched. But if one looked closely, just for a second, they might see a blurred reflection. A figure standing just behind them, watching, waiting. Despite search efforts, Jacob Myers was never found. Authorities blamed foul play, but no evidence supported it. Just another name on Whitford Hotel's long list of disappearances. But here's the part that chills the bones. Guests still report seeing a man at night wandering the halls, lost. His eyes distant, as if searching for a way out. And just like that, Jacob Myers was gone. No body, no clues, just a chilling final note, as if he knew the walls of the Whitford Hotel were closing in on him. To this day, room 313 remains untouched. Doors still creaking open on their own, whispers in the dead of night, and that mirror, still hanging, waiting for the next unfortunate soul to look too closely. So, what do you think? Was Jacob merely a victim of something explainable, or did he uncover something not meant to be found? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you love unraveling mysteries like this one, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, because we have plenty more chilling stories coming your way. Thanks for watching.